Hello everybody and welcome to episode 2 of Disney Cars Diecasts that have been made, where I go over the cars from my Disney Cars Diecasts that should be made series that have been released in the 3 years since that series started, which yeah, it's been 3 years since I started Cars That Should Be Made now. Anyway though, like I already said, in this series, I discussed the cars that have been released since I made the episodes of that series. Last time, I took a look at the first 10 episodes that make up Volume 1. This time, I'm going to be taking a look at the first 10 episodes of Volume 2 of the series. I'll only be discussing cars that have been officially released, so no canceled releases and no, customs or anything like that. I also won't be discussing any cars if I already discussed them in the last episode. Some of the entries and later Cars That Should Be Made episodes are repeats because I forgot that I put them in earlier episodes. And before I get started, I just want to remind you guys to make sure you vote in the poll in the description for what car you want me to review next. Started that poll with my last review, and I'm keeping it up until my next review. So make sure you vote on that to let me know what car you want me to review next. Anyway, with all that out of the way, let's get started. So there aren't actually any cars featured in the first 2 episodes that have been made. The first episode of Volume 2 is pretty short, and the second one focuses exclusively around cars and deleted scenes, and Mattel doesn't make cars from deleted scenes, so nobody from those first 2 episodes have been made, but quite a few have from episode 3. Up first, we have this variant of Lightning McQueen labeled as Revealed Chester. Now, this is Lightning once his Chester Whipple filter disguise has been washed off of him, and it was released in 2020 under the name Muddy Rusty's Racing Center Lightning McQueen, which I definitely think is a much better name than what was chosen for Cars That Should Be Made. And that McQueen ended up being one of my favorite releases of 2020, so I'm really glad we got him. He's another one that I didn't really expect to see, especially not so soon after the release of Cars 3. Also in that episode, alongside some other race cars that were also featured in Volume 1, Next Gen Synergy. This guy, of course, released later on in the year that I made this video, made it in February of 2018. He released, I want to say over the summer of 2018, in a 2-pack with the Little Torquey Pistons Next Gen, Spiky Phillips, and of course their names were infamously swapped around, but now we know, thanks to other releases, that 2-pack being corrected, and variants, that this guy is Eric Breaker. No cars have been made from episode 4 yet. That episode was mainly damaged versions of Next Gens. So now, moving on to episode 5, we have Maddie McGear's mom, who of course released in a 2-pack with Maddie McGear in 2019 under the name Melissa Burnabrake. Every once in a while in Cars That Should Be Made, I would throw in a random idea for a metallic release. And I came up with the idea for Metallic Sally, who, surprisingly, was released the following year in 2019. I completely forgot that this was a car that I thought of for Cars That Should Be Made. And, in hindsight, now that we have a Metallic Sally, looking back, yeah, getting Metallic Sally was pretty inevitable, considering just how many other major characters have metallic variants. In that same episode, I showed off Carla Veloso's Pity with only the highest quality image. Yikes, that is terrible. But hey, in my defense, the defense of me 3 years ago, you barely see Carla Veloso's Pities in the movie. But a pity for Carla Veloso named Adam Park came out just a few months after I made this video in early 2018. I also featured a Rip Klutchgonski pity. A Rip Klutchgonski pity by the name of Terrell Geartree was then released in 2019. And looking back on it, much like Metallic Sally, the release of a Carla Veloso pity, as well as the release of a pity for Rip, they were definitely all pretty inevitable. No cars mentioned in episode 7 have been released yet, which is really shocking. I thought by now they would have released Mater half with bubbles, half normal. Look, I've thrown so many ideas out there. Not everyone's going to be good. In episode 8, I featured Car with Metal Detector as a deluxe, based around the car at the airport in Cars 2 who sets off the metal detector, who doesn't have any tires on his wheels. This one is a mistake on my part. I didn't realize that this guy had already been released. He, of course, is Alex Vandell, released as a chase in, I want to say 2012, although he didn't come with the metal detector. And by the way, Alex Vandell is one of the options on that poll for who I can review next. Up next, also from episode 8, Next Gen Gaskets, who of course was released as Dan Garcia in an Amazon exclusive, I want to say it was a 10-pack. and that pack was released in later 2018. Dan was then re-released as a single in 2020. And finally, from episode 10 of volume 2, the last card we're going to be talking about here today, Corrected Color Holly, which sort of happened in 2020. Mattel re-released Holly Shiftwell in a different color scheme, trying to make it more accurate, but it still wasn't accurate. So, they tried to correct her color, but I wouldn't consider it a corrected color Holly, even though, that's what they were going for. I don't know, she's kind of got a weird case. Anyway, though, guys, this has been another edition of Disney Cars Diecasts that have been made. Definitely going to do a few more episodes of the series just to wrap up all the cars that have been made. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye now. Looking back on it, much like Metallic Sally, the release of a Carlo Veloso Pity and a Rip Klutchkowski Pity